This is my video update from Nicosia, Cyprus on this Friday, June the 2nd. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with the EU summit in Moldova. And during the event in Moldova, Elensky confronted the president of Serbia, Vucic, and it looked like it was a tense exchange. Vucic is a pretty big dude. He's like something like 6'7" or something like that, and he's towering over Elensky. But Elensky confronted Vucic, and I imagine that Elensky went up to Vucic and he complained about how Serbia continues to support Russia and how Serbia does not turn on Russia and place sanctions on Russia and stuff like that. And I imagine that Elensky confronted Vucic about Serbia's continued support towards Russia. Vucic the other day, when he was talking about the tensions in Kosovo and Metohija and how the Pristina authorities, Kurti, the leader of the Pristina authority, how he was trying to draw NATO into the conflict in Kosovo and Metohija, trying to ramp up tensions between Serbia and NATO. And Vucic compared Kurti to Elensky, like the same tactics that Elensky continuously uses to try and draw NATO into an open conflict with Russia. Vucic said that those are the tactics that Kurti is trying to use in Kosovo and Metohija. And I imagine that Elensky probably went up to Vucic and had a word with Vucic. Vucic, Alexander Vucic, listen up. I don't like how you compare Kurti to myself. We very different. Me, Kurti, very, very different. I don't like this. And why you still support Russia? I don't understand why you support Russia. I tell you, sanction Russia, but you refuse to sanction Russia. This no good. I do not like this. And by the way, Mr. Vucic, maybe you have $1 billion or 2 billion euros to give me so I can buy home in Belgrade, maybe. So that was the exchange between Elensky and Vucic. Vucic made a statement during this European Political Community Summit. That is the exact name of this summit that was taking place in Moldova. And Vucic said, I had the opportunity to have a short talk with Elensky. It is important to say that Ukraine has not recognized the independence of Kosovo and respects the territorial integrity of Serbia, just as Serbia, following the UN Charter, respects the integrity of Ukraine. However, Vucic said that Serbia would not place sanctions on Russia. He said that when we talk about sanctions, as in Serbia, when Serbia talks about sanctions, we made our decision in March 2022. You can never change someone's position with just one conversation. Serbia has its own policy, and Vucic said that the people of Serbia would never support sanctions against Russia, would not support sanctions against Russia. So that is what Vucic said after the exchange with Elensky. And the EU, by the way, the EU is actually calling on the authorities in Kosovo, in Pristina, to have new elections in these districts where we're seeing a lot of tension between the ethnic Serbs in the area and the K4 soldiers and NATO and the police in these areas where there was like a 3% turnout in the last elections for mayor. the EU is saying that the authorities in Pristina should hold new elections, which is a sign, a signal that the EU they they don't want a conflict to break out in Kosovo Metohija. Maybe there was a time 6 months ago, 8 months ago, that they would have liked the second front, something to have started up in Serbia or in Kosovo Metohija. But now, with their deindustrialization and their demilitarization in Ukraine, it looks like the EU and NATO and even the United States, Blinken also commented on this. They just simply cannot afford another conflict, even if it would distract Russia. They can't afford another conflict in Serbia, Kosovo Metohija, Georgia, Moldova. It seems like the second front thing is off the table. The collective West has been sufficiently demilitarized, and there's very little support now in the collective West among citizens of the collective West for another conflict to break out. So the EU is even telling Kurti to have elections again, to have new elections in Kosovo Metohija to try and calm things down. Elensky was in Moldova talking up a second front, even though there's no real desire for a second front. Elensky did speak to the media, and he said that Ukraine would absolutely come to the aid of Moldova and free Transnistria. That is what Elensky said in a press statement. And I quote, "Ukraine will definitely play one of the main roles in the fate of Transnistria because we share a border. Regarding what we do with the topic of who is there on the territory with troops, if they want to live, they will leave. If they want to live, they will leave." These are movie lines. These are movie lines, and Elensky is delivering his movie lines. If they want to live, they will leave. How does that sound, Podolyak? Is this good? Did I deliver this good? If they want to live, they will leave. Talking about the Russian troops, the peacekeepers in Transnistria, right? There were rumors that Sandu, the leader of Moldova, had given permission to Elensky to station her troops in Moldova, but then this was reported as inaccurate or fake news, or I don't know. I don't think Moldova is going to host Elensky troops on their territory. I don't think she's that crazy. No doubt that Sandu will do pretty much anything the EU tells her to do, and no doubt that she's got her eye on a very high position in the globalist WEF network, maybe like deputy director of the World Bank, or maybe she's going to go the route of Dancing Queen Santa Marin, and she's eyeing some sort of HBO Max TV show. But at the moment, the leader of Moldova, Sandu, it appears that she's not going to invite Ukraine into Moldova, even though there were rumors about that. Those rumors seem to be inaccurate. During the entire summit in Moldova, all the collective West leaders were talking about was Ukraine and NATO guarantees. Should we give guarantees to Ukraine, NATO guarantees to Ukraine? Should we not? Should we not? That was the entire conference. Germany, they indicated that the time is not right for Ukraine to enter NATO. Stoltenberg came out with wishy-washy statements. At times he was like, I don't think he was at attendance at this meeting, but in reference to this meeting and to the whole Ukraine-NATO thing, he was coming out with statements saying that all of the countries of NATO have agreed that Ukraine's place is in NATO, but we're not going to make an offer, and the time is not right. Sunak, of course, he was like, yeah, let's let's give NATO membership to Ukraine like yesterday. You know, Sunak came out with the video with him and Elensky, and they're hugging and laughing, and, I don't know, holding hands as they walk the streets of of Chisinau. I don't know. I mean, the video, the videos that come out between Sunak and Elensky, it's now become like every week you seem to have some new video of Elensky and Sunak hanging out and drinking beers and laughing and joking around and just, I mean, hugging it out. Every week you have a new Sunak Elensky video. Every freaking week. And these are like really well produced videos too. You know that the Hollywood script writers, you know, they're coming up with the scenes and they're doing camera shots and they're saying, okay, Rishi, I want you to walk with Elensky this way. Come this way, Rishi. Perfect. Now smile, Rishi, smile. Awesome. Elensky, look at Rishi. Look at him and smile. Beautiful. That's a wrap, everybody. Cut. Let's go to the next location. It's just every week, those two. Every freaking week. I think we're going to get some sort of sitcom. Rishi and Elensky. I don't know what the name of the sitcom will be. I'm trying to think. What would be a good name for a sitcom with Rishi Sunak and Volodymyr Elensky? Every day, those two. So Sandu, she thanked Elensky for not only defending Moldova and the rest of Europe. She said that Ukraine keeps Moldova safe and keeps Moldova safe today, and we're very, very grateful for that, she said. So she's thanking Elensky for protecting not only Moldova, but also Europe. Deutsche Welle writes that Moldova is the second poorest country in Europe after Ukraine. Moldova does not have a significant army and is bound to military neutrality by its constitution and is thus very vulnerable. But Moldova is saying they're going to get into the European Union by 2030. Yeah, why not? The only requirements now to enter the European Union is that you have to hate Russia. That's it. That is the only requirement. Are you willing to place sanctions on Russia? Check. Do you hate Russia? Check. Do you want to go to war with Russia? Maybe. Check. But not now. We've been demilitarized. Maybe in like 3-4 years when we can replenish our ammunition and weapon stockpiles. In 3 years, are you willing to go to conflict with Russia? Perfect. Those are the requirements to enter the European Union. That's it. That's all that's needed at this point in time. Doesn't matter your financial situation, your your human rights. like Europe has human rights anymore. The EU, I think they've thrown that requirement out the window. What's your feelings about Russia? That'll let us know if you're ready to join the European Union. The EU, a we'll take anybody club. The nightclub that was once very exclusive and it had a very strict dress code. Now it's like, just come on in. Shorts, flip-flops, just enter the nightclub. We don't care. Anyone can come in to this EU nightclub. Deutsche Welle, in their article, where they talked about how Moldova and Sandu is very grateful to Elensky for protecting Moldova and all of Europe. They wrote that Orban was also in attendance at this summit in Moldova, but they said that Orban was very, very alone. He was very lonely. That's what Deutsche Welle reported. The Hungarian leader was in attendance, but at times he seemed very much alone because Deutsche Welle said he's a Putin ally. Orban has been branded a Putin ally because he doesn't want to go to war with Russia. He's a Putin ally, Putin's best buddy. And he's all alone. He's eating alone. He's eating lunch alone and breakfast alone and dinner alone. And he's got no buddies in the EU summit. Well, except Vucic. Vucic in Serbia. Those are an ally. That's an ally for Orban. He can sit down with Vucic they can have breakfast and lunch together. It's like Mean Girls. The EU's become like a bunch of Mean Girls. You know, if you're not part of the Mean Girls, well then we're gonna vanquish you to the edge of the cafeteria because you don't want to go to war with Russia. But you know, Orban, he's standing firm. He's standing tough. He said that the Hungarian government believes it's necessary to prevent a counteroffensive by the Ukraine army because it will only lead to new victims of the conflict, primarily on the part of Ukraine. And then Orban stated that the current government in Hungary will never go to war with Russia and will not allow itself to be dragged into the conflict in Ukraine. Very interesting statement from Orban. Basically, he's saying that the counteroffensive is just going to lead to unnecessary Ukrainian military deaths. It's not going to work out well. Orban knows it. And that's what he's saying. He knows it and he's saying it. It's interesting that Elensky, in a lot of his speeches now, he's always talking about how Ukraine is going to protect Moldova and it's fighting for Moldova and it's going to protect Belarus and fighting for Belarus. Did you notice that? More and more speeches for Elensky are about Belarus and Moldova and how those countries should enter NATO and those countries should be in the EU. Elensky made some sort of statement like all the countries that border Russia should enter NATO and the European Union. And of course, people are joking now. They're saying, does that mean countries in the Far East as well, Elensky? Because they also border Russia. You could make the argument that the U.S. kind of borders Russia in a way, right? So should the U.S. join the EU? So yeah, Elensky keeps on talking about Belarus and Moldova. And Lukashenko came out with a statement the other day, and he said that they're planning another coup in Belarus. I find it interesting that Lukashenko comes out with a statement saying that the West is planning another coup in Belarus, while Elensky, in every speech that he's given, the past couple of days, he's mentioned Belarus and Europe, Belarus and NATO. They should be part of the European family. Europe, Europe, Europe. The obsession that all of these elites have with the term Europe. It's just a continent. It's just a continent. It's nothing more, nothing less. It's Europe and Africa and Australia, Antarctica. That's all it is. There's nothing more to it. There's no values. There's no identity. There's none of that stuff. It's just a freaking continent. It's just geography, Elensky. That's all it is. It's just geography. But he keeps on talking about Belarus's rightful place in Europe. Lukashenko, he also said that that Russia should have launched an operation against Ukraine in 2014. This is an interesting comment from Lukashenko. He said that the conflict of Ukraine was inevitable, and perhaps it would have been better if Russia and Putin had done something in 2014. I absolutely agree with President Putin when he says that we did not start this war. It didn't even start in 2014. It started well before 2014. We saw everything that happened here, the brown coup that took place, and what Ukraine had been led into, Lukashenko said. Hostilities were bound to break out sooner or later. Lukashenko claimed, adding that even if Moscow had not launched its military operation a year ago, it would have been inevitable anyway, but on even worse terms for Russia and Belarus. Everything was leading up to this. Probably the only mistake we made was that we did not resolve this issue in 2014, 2015, when Ukraine had neither an army nor resolve. According to Lukashenko, current Ukraine President Elensky, as well as Poroshenko and Yanukovych, effectively did nothing to secure a peaceful existence for the country's citizens. They didn't want war, but were apparently being pushed into it, Lukashenko alleged, adding that Kiev's Western backers have openly admitted to using the drawn-out diplomatic efforts to resolve the crisis merely as a stopgap to arm and train Ukraine's military. They frankly admitted that they did everything to prepare Ukraine for a war with Russia. And Lukashenko is referencing the multiple statements from Merkel, Hollande, Poroshenko, even Elensky, that the Minsk agreement was nothing more than a way to put a pause in hostilities in Donbass, but more importantly, to prepare Ukraine for an eventual conflict with Russia. The Minsk agreement was an entire lie, according to Merkel and Hollande. Zelensky and Lukashenko is referencing those statements from specifically Merkel. That one's the one that really hurts. I think that one's the one that hurts Putin and that hurts Russia. The fact that Merkel came out and said that the Minsk agreement was just a delay tactic. That's all it was. It was a farce, a lie. And the only reason that they signed up to the Minsk agreement, Germany, was so that they could buy time for Ukraine and rearm their military and build up their military to eventually come into conflict with Russia. And Lukashenko, he's kind of right, he's kind of wrong. I mean, there's a lot of debates. I think about it at times as well. What if Russia did something in 2014? Would it have stopped this escalation towards World War III? Would it have been better for Russia to have done something in 2014? Yes, the Ukraine military was very weak. Yes, the Ukraine military had been defeated by Donbass, and that's why Merkel called up Putin so that they could come up with the Minsk agreement, because Ukraine had been defeated by the Donbass forces. But on the flip side, you could make the argument that if Russia had continued to push further into Ukraine, or had continued to escalate the conflict, say in 2014, that maybe the Obama administration, maybe the U.S. would have moved towards more crippling sanctions against Russia instead of the sanctions they just put on Russia for Crimea. Maybe they would have escalated those sanctions, and you can make the argument that the Russian economy at that time in 2014 would not have been strong enough to have withstood shock and awe sanctions. You can also make the argument that would Europe have gone along with shock and awe sanctions against Russia at that time in 2014? Maybe yes, maybe no. It's so hard to come up with some sort of conclusion or correct analysis. What if Russia would have dealt with the Ukraine military back in 2014? I think there's arguments in both directions. At the end of the day, I imagine that Putin and his administration, they looked at all the pros and cons, and they probably sat down and said, yes, we could easily defeat the Ukraine military, but the U.S. will react with sanctions, crippling sanctions. Our economy is not strong enough yet to deal with these sanctions, and diplomacy is probably the best route. We still have a little bit of trust for Merkel, and if we could work over the years to get them to enforce the Minsk agreement, then we can come to a good diplomatic, peaceful solution for Ukraine. And in the meantime, we'll build up our economy, we'll build up our weapon stockpiles, and hopefully it doesn't come to this. But if we are pushed and Merkel doesn't honor the Minsk agreement and the West does not honor the Minsk agreement, then we will get to a position where we are prepared to withstand some sort of economic shock and awe, and we will have the weapons to see a conflict through in the future. I think that was the calculation that Putin and his administration made. They said, let's give diplomacy a shot, because at this moment, militarily, yes, we could probably accomplish our goals, but the Russian Federation is going to probably pay a very, very heavy price that they may not be able to endure from the collective West in the form of sanctions and stuff like that. So they gave diplomacy a shot, and they were very patient. 8, 9 years, and it didn't work out. But I can see Lukashenko's point as well. I mean, I think there's an argument to be made from both sides. So let's talk about Biden and the collective West, because Biden was the vice president for Obama in 2014, and he was the ruler of Ukraine for about 2-3 years. Obama appointed Biden as king of Ukraine when Biden was president. When Obama was president, now Biden is president. So when Obama was president, he made Biden president of Ukraine, and Biden is now president of the United States. I need a coffee. Let's see. So Biden, he tripped and fell when he was giving his speech the other day to the in Colorado at the Air Force Academy, and the reports are, or at least Biden claims, that he tripped over a sandbag on stage. I don't think so. It didn't look like he tripped over something. It just looked like he fell. I was thinking of using Biden falling as my opening video segment, but I think it's gone so super viral that I wanted to open with Vucic and Elensky, because I'm sure everyone has now seen Biden falling. He was giving his speech. It looked like he just fell. There was a pause, and Biden paused after he shook hands and was handing out diplomas. He paused. He obviously didn't know in which direction to go to, and then he started to move towards one direction, and he simply fell. I don't think there was a sandbag there, or he tripped over something. I don't know. It didn't look like he tripped over something. It just looked like he fell. And then when he got up, he did point to something. So maybe that's what tripped him up, according to Biden. Maybe there was something there that tripped him up. Anyway, okay, it's Biden. It's Biden. It's easy to poke fun at Biden falling. I'll tell you why. Because the Biden White House and the collective West media, they poke fun at other world leaders when they've not even when they've fallen, when they've just, I don't even know, like they poke fun. The collective West media and the Biden White House, they made a big deal of, or at least Biden at the time, and the Democrats at the time, they made a big deal when Trump was president, and he grabbed onto the guardrail when he was walking after a meeting. I think it was during the summit with, I want to say, the Japanese prime minister, but I forgot when this was. But Trump was at some meeting or some summit, and he was walking like down a slope or down some stairs. He grabbed onto the guardrail, the arm rail. And I mean, the collective West media was going on about this for like weeks, about how Trump is sick, and look at Trump. He's obviously unable to rule and to be president and all of these things, just because he grabbed onto the guardrail. Or when Putin, 8-9 months ago, when he was meeting with Shoigu after Mariupol, after Shoigu met with Putin, and this was after Mariupol, and Shoigu was telling Putin how Mariupol has been fully liberated by the Russian forces, and Putin was like grabbing onto the armrest as he was speaking with Shoigu, and the collective West media, the Biden White House, they made like a huge stink about how Putin is suffering from multiple heart attacks and Parkinson's and dementia and all of these things. He's had a stroke. It was crazy how they were talking about Putin being ill, because when he was sitting down listening to Shoigu, he was holding on to the chair's armrest. So, they say this about every other world leader, and it's now happened to Biden again. It's not the first time. It's not the second time. It's like the 5th time this happened to Biden. And the collective West media, they're not going to talk about this. Even though when it happens to another leader, all they do is they talk about it, or at least an opponent or a leader who they don't like. All they do is talk about it. So that's one of the reasons to me that this is a story. Otherwise, I don't like it when anyone falls. I mean, we all trip up and fall. I trip up and fall all the time. It happens to everybody. But this is like karma in a way. All they do is they make fun of everybody else when it happens to them, but it's now happened to Biden, and the media is not going to talk about this. There's also some symbolism to this in a way. There's a geopolitical story in this, and there is some symbolism. The symbolism is that Biden was given a speech talking up NATO, and Sweden getting into NATO soon, and how Turkey and Hungary, they better approve Sweden getting into NATO, and Russia bad, Ukraine super strong, all of these things. He was talking about all these things during this event, and he's talking about the power of NATO, and he falls. So there's some symbolism there as well. At the Air Force Academy, and we've been talking about the F-16s, right? That's been one of the big stories for Ukraine for the past 1 month, is F-16 and fighter jets. And Ukrainian pilots or NATO pilots. And here's Biden at the U.S. Air Force Academy handing out diplomas and talking about the power of NATO, and he just collapses. So I think there's some symbolism there as well, if you want to look at it from that angle. And of course, there is the geopolitical story, which is Biden basically sending a message to Turkey and Sweden. You better to Turkey and Hungary, you better approve Sweden's entry into NATO. That's pretty much what Biden was saying at his speech. NATO is more energized and more united than it's been in decades. It's now even stronger than the accession of our newest ally, Finland, and soon Sweden to the alliance. As soon as possible, it will happen, I promise you. So there is a geopolitical story there. Turkey, from what I understand, there was going to be a NATO foreign ministers meeting on Sweden, or Turkey was going to meet with Sweden to discuss the NATO entrance of Sweden, and Turkey canceled that meeting. So what does that tell you? Turkey canceled the meeting with NATO on the accession of the entrance of Sweden into NATO. The New York Times, this is what the New York Times reported, and I'm taking this from Zero Hedge. The New York Times said President Biden tripped and fell after delivering a speech and handing out diplomas to graduates of the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs on Thursday. Mr. Biden, who is 80 years old, was helped up and appeared to recover quickly. Mr. Biden's fall was captured on video and spread on social media. He appears to trip, fall to his knees, and catch himself with his hands on the floor of the stage. He was helped up by several Air Force officials and Secret Service agents, and he walked back to his seat. Mr. Biden had just delivered an energetic speech to the Air Force graduates before helping to hand out the diplomas. He fell after he distributed the final diploma and was helped back to his seat. You see, he's energized. You see how they cover up for Biden? He gave an energetic speech. He was energized. He quickly got up. And the amount of cover that the media provides to Biden is incredible, how they protect this guy. Absolutely incredible how they protect Biden. Let's do one more story and we'll get to a clown world. And let's talk quickly about more Russian missiles and drones hitting Kiev. From what I understand, they hit Kiev really, really hard yesterday. Basically, the Russians, they can hit any part of Ukraine whenever they want, and specifically, they can hit Kiev as well. The Patriots, they don't seem to be working. I mean, Ukraine says that Russia fired 21 missiles and Ukraine shot down 25 missiles. I mean, you get those stories now from the Ukraine military, but you see the photos and the videos, and it's obvious that Russia is hitting whatever they want, whenever they want, in Kiev and elsewhere. I mean, it's obvious now. And you even have videos of Patriot missiles just falling from the sky, like on a street. So, people are driving and bam, a Patriot missile crashes to the ground. I mean, this is a disaster for the Elensky regime, but it's a disaster for the military-industrial complex. For I think Raytheon is making the Patriot missiles or the Patriot systems. It's a disaster for the military-industrial complex. Raytheon Technologies stock has fallen something like 12% from its peak in April. From its peak in April, it's fallen 12%. What does that tell you? What does that tell you? And we also have reports now that, the Russians are advancing in Marinka. From what I understand, Kadyrov, the Chechen troops, they've been brought to Marinka. At least this is what I understand, to liberate or capture that city, and they're now moving pretty quickly through Marinka. At least those are the reports that I'm seeing. It's a pretty fortified area, so maybe it's going to take some time, but that's a new city that we should keep a lookout for, is what's happening in Marinka. And we have the reports that Ukraine is ready to go in the Zaporozhye direction. Their forces are ready to go, locked and loaded. They're ready to begin the big summer, spring, fall, winter, spring, summer, fall, winter counteroffensive of the offensive, which offends me and you and offends everybody. They're ready to move towards Zaporozhye. And I've said this for a while now, that the big media prize, whatever happens in this big offensive, failure, success, whatever, the media prize, the media story here is the ZMPP. That's going to get a lot of headlines for the Elensky regime, and I think that's what they're going to focus on, is the ZMPP. And then there are reports saying that from the ZMPP, they'll make their way down either towards Melitopol or towards the Mariupol direction. Who knows? They'll split the land bridge in one of the directions. I've been seeing a lot of videos from Mariupol, and the Russians, they're rebuilding Mariupol. I mean, Mariupol seems to be returning to normal life. New apartment complexes, hospitals, kindergartens, schools, streets have been fixed up, shopping centers. I mean, people are outdoors, at outdoor cafes. Kids are playing in the playgrounds. Would Russia be doing this? Building up Mariupol, people coming back to a normal life? Would all this be going on if Mariupol was, or if the Russians felt that Mariupol was in danger from the Ukraine military and the big Elensky offensive? I don't think so. I don't think that this would be the images that we're getting from Mariupol. I think the Russians would be much more cautious, not only about building up Mariupol, but about everybody returning to normal life. Now, I know Mariupol is a little further away from where many analysts believe Ukraine will move towards in this offensive, if they can move towards that direction. But there are analysts who are saying that Ukraine will try to move towards Mariupol, or at least in that general direction. There are analysts that believe that may be where the Ukraine military goes, Zaporozhye and then towards Mariupol. But you look at the videos and the photos coming from Mariupol and the reconstruction that's taking place, and it just looks like the Russians are not, I don't want to say they're not concerned. It just seems like they've got everything under control. The videos from Mariupol are pretty amazing. The life that is coming back to that city. It seems like people are happy. Propaganda videos, yeah, maybe, but people seem to be shopping, going about their daily lives again. Anyway, let's do a clown world, and let's talk about the UK, because the UK is being pushed to become the country that is going to face off against Russia. I don't know if they're choosing to do this or if they're being pushed by the US, but man, the UK is front and center in this conflict now, and we have a CNN report which is talking about how British experts are teaching Ukrainians how to make tin can bombs, really destructive, terrible little bombs in a tin can, and CNN is happy about this. They're talking about how the UK military is teaching them how to create these bombs. Ukrainians can use these bombs to drop them from UAVs, according to CNN, in addition to exercises on the production of IEDs. British experts are also supplying the armed forces of Ukraine with important components for the manufacture of these little explosive devices, switches, microchips, 3D printers. CNN clarifies that these parts are much easier to obtain from experts than through NATO countries. So yeah, it's like an off the books NATO project, an off the books UK military project with Ukraine, teaching the Ukraine military and Ukrainian saboteurs how to create these little bombs to terrorize Russia and Russians. So we have that story. The UK is also, the Telegraph, the UK Telegraph put out a puff piece where they interviewed Estonian Prime Minister Kaja Kallas, and she's talking about how the UK military will be called into Estonia to fight for Estonia if Russia decides to invade Estonia. And Kallas is talking about how the UK military has been training in the forests of Estonia. They understand the Estonian landscape really well. And Kaja Kallas said that if and when Russia invades Estonia, the British will come to save Estonia. The British will come to save Estonia. That is according to Kaja Kallas. And finally, we have the metro.co.uk in this cover, which reads, UK leaders, legitimate targets. And it has a little photo of Cleverly there. Russian threat after Moscow attack. I talked about this a couple of days ago. Dmitry Medvedev's tweets where he said that UK leaders, our eternal enemies in the UK, and their leaders are now also legitimate targets, according to Medvedev's tweet. So I don't even know if this is really a clown world, but I guess the clown world is that, I don't know if the UK government is voluntarily signing up for this, or once again, if the US is pushing them into this role, but looks like the UK is going to be the tip of the spear if there's some broader conflict with Russia. I wonder how the citizens of the UK feel about all of this. Oh boy. Anyway, that's the video, everybody. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, and Rockfin. And go to the Duran shop. 10% off. Use the code GOOD. Good day. Take care.